Yeah, Kennedy's just checking. Yep, we do have a quorum, and you can proceed when you're ready.
Okay. I'm going to read my script so I don't get crossways. I'm calling to this meeting of the Tucson AMA Groundwater Users Advisory Council to order. Today is May 26th, 2021, and the time is 1 o'clock sharp. This meeting is being held virtually, and I am Val Little, the chair. Would members please introduce themselves? And let's start with the new kid on the block. We have a new kid. Mike?
Yes, Mike Block, retired, formerly with Metro Water District, and corporate vice president for the Arizona Hydrological Society.
Excellent. We're glad to have you among us. And Doug?
I'm Doug Greenland with Cortero Marana Irrigation District in Marana.
Okay, we've got. Sorry.
Can you turn the TV down a little bit?
Would we do what? Oh, maybe he's some.
Turn the television down. Well, I did.
Hi, Pat. Calling Pat. Calling Pat.
No.
No. Okay.
Well, it was wrong.
Are you with us, Pat?
Right here. Right.
Moving on. I'd like to proceed with AMA staff introductions. We've got a room full of them up there somewhere if they'd show themselves.
We have a room full and then some. My name's Kyle Miller, AMA Director.
Kennedy Shepard, GUAC Coordinator.
Raise your hand, raise your hand.
Kennedy Shepard, GUAC Coordinator. Hi,
Okay,
Val.
good. Yeah.
Kyle.
Melissa Sykes, WMAP Coordinator.
Okay.
Jenna Norris, Governor's Water Council Coordinator.
Okay.
John Riggins, Statewide Planning Manager.
Excellent. We're glad to have you here, and hopefully sooner or later we're all going to be in the same room at the same time. Moving on to item number 2, webinar logistics. Kennedy, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before we get started, just a few things. We do ask that everyone keep their phone muted during the meeting. This helps with audio feedback. For members of the public, if you have any questions or comments throughout any of the presentations, please feel free to type them into the chat box. We will read and address them at the end of each presentation. If you want to speak to the council, the call to public is your time to do that. This meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to ADWR's website and YouTube page once the recording has been generated. If you are having any technical difficulties, please contact ADWR's help desk and their information is on the screen. And that is all I have.
Okay, we're going to move right along. Item number 3 is to elect a GUAC vice chair. And we can open nominations, and unless anybody's just dying to make a nomination, I'd like to nominate Doug Greenland to be the vice chair of GUAC.
Second.
I hear a second. Any discussion? Any complaints about Doug? Anything you want to air about him? Okay, let's call the question. Do we have to do a roll call, Kyle? Can somebody?
No, I think just yay or nays will work, and if we hear
Okay.
any nays, we can go through.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Who opposed? Who opposed? Okay, nobody opposed. All right. Pat was late to the vote. Okay, well, we've got ourselves a vice chair now. Thank you, Doug, for being willing to serve in this very difficult and time-consuming job.
You'll have to let me know what it is you want me to do.
Oh, I will. Okay, we're moving on to item number 4, ADWR current activities update. Kyle?
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. Congratulations, Mr. Greenland. It's good to be with you again, and I'd also like to welcome Mr. Block to the GUAC on behalf of ADWR. We're looking forward to working with you moving into the future. Excited to have you on the team. We've been really busy at the department, and I'll be glad to provide a brief update. As you know, our annual reports were due on March 31st, and if you remember last year, we went into COVID-related teleworking right at the end of March 2020. So almost all of last year's reporting season was normal. It was just kind of the final rush where we had to deal with working from home and COVID difficulties. That meant this year was our first reporting season in which the entire season was impacted by teleworking and fewer hours in the office. We attempted to move as much as possible that we could do online while continuing to provide prompt and courteous service to our reporting parties. And we succeeded in that goal, thanks in large part to the innovation of our annual reporting coordinator and the hard work of all of our staff. Utilization of our online reporting tool is going to end up being a little bit higher than it was last year, which is good for us in a variety of ways. It results in better data and requires less time for QC and data entry on our side. We did send out the first round of failure to file notifications in April and are on pace to meet our goal of ending the reporting year with about 5% of rights failing to file across all the AMAs. As we are working to collect any remaining reports, we're also shifting our focus to data entry and quality control checks on the data that we've already received. And as I've said before, that's a long and detailed process that can take us several months, but it's really critical to our statewide use estimates, and it's something that we'll have completed by the fall.
Kyle, before we move on, did you notice any uptick in failure to report numbers?
No, we're pretty average right now. So
okay, good.
Yeah, across all AMAs, we're just over, or maybe just below 10% right now, and we send out another round of failure to files and anticipate that we'll end up right about where we always are, around that 5% number.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
So Kyle, what happens to those who don't eventually report?
So we make every effort we can to reach out to them. That includes giving calls, emails. If we don't hear from them, then they have to pay the maximum with late fees and that kind of thing. If next year's reporting season comes around and they don't file again, and then we're able to make contact with them, we can try to get that past year's data. But at this point, we don't really have a system in place to track them if we're unable to contact them. All right, so moving on, we've also dedicated a significant amount of time to developing and publishing sector-specific web pages. We've already received really positive feedback on those, and Kennedy's going to scroll through those on your screen here. These pages contain information about the mandatory conservation programs, some details on each sector, and a frequently asked questions section. The agricultural and municipal pages are currently live and on our website. The industrial web page is under development and should be published here within the next week or so. Our planners worked really hard on those pages, and each page is really impressive, has a lot of good work put into it. So I just want to encourage members and anyone listening in to please take a look and let us know if you have any thoughts or suggestions, ways that we can improve that. The planners are also working on sector-specific data dashboards that's going to contribute to our data sharing and transparency initiative, and should be really useful for anyone looking to learn more about water use in the AMAs. We have a really strong team in place, and I'm looking forward to sharing those finished products with you at future meetings. The department has also recently published a legislative affairs webpage that's shown on your screen now. The top area provides an update on the current status of the legislative session, and below that you can see any posted committee hearings. It says none at this time. Our legislative liaison, Ben Alternator, tracks relevant bills on this page, and if you go down and click enacted legislation, you can see what bills have passed and been signed by Governor Ducey this session. Each bill on here listed has a short summary and a link to the actual text of the bill if you'd like to review that. We're also continuing our work to administer the $2 million groundwater conservation grant that was part of DCP. And of the 18 selected projects across all AMAs, 16 of those have executed their contracts, and the other 2 are in progress and should be finalized soon. Melissa will give a more specific update on the Tucson AMA projects when she talks a little bit later. Outside our AMA section, the Groundwater Modeling Unit continues making progress on their projects, including updating the Prescott AMA model, They're developing a new groundwater model for the Phoenix AMA, combining the East and West Salt River Valley and the Hassayampa Subbasin, updating the Tucson AMA model, and continuing to participate in the Pinal Stakeholders Group activities and meetings. And then finally, our public stakeholder processes are ongoing. The Arizona Reconsultation Committee continues to hold modeling and analysis work group meetings, and they've met twice since our last UAC meeting on March 11th and May 13th. Recordings of both of those meetings are available on our website, and any future dates will be posted there as well. The full Reconsultation Committee met today at 10 this morning, and those documents from that meeting will be posted shortly. We've also made progress on the management plans, and McKenna is going to provide a more detailed update later in the meeting. And likewise, the Governor's Water Augmentation, Innovation, and Conservation Council continues to hold committee meetings, and a summary of their activities will be provided by John Riggins a little bit later in this meeting. So that concludes the agency activity update.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you. Next is item number 5, Colorado River update. Brett?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brett Estlund. I'm the Water Resources Engineer for Colorado River Section at ADWR. I'm sure, as most of you know, it's not going to be any good news, but bear with me as we go through it.
We're not going to blame you personally.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So we'll start with the review of the Colorado system reservoir status. These are updated as of May 20th. So starting in the upper right, moving down, we have Fontenelle at 37% capacity, Flaming Gorge at 85% capacity, Blue Mesa at 41%, Morrow Point at 44%, and Navajo at 63%. Looking over at Lake Powell, you're currently at an elevation of 3560.3 feet with a storage of 8.3 million acre feet or 34% of capacity. Lake Mead is currently at an elevation of 1075.9, the storage of 9.7 million acre feet or 37% capacity. Again, this was updated on the 20th, and I believe yesterday Mead did drop below 1075, but on a day-to-day basis, that's not important. We're looking for the 1075 mark in the August study. So looking at the reservoir system as a whole, we currently have 25.1 million acre feet in storage, or 41% of the system capacity. And looking back at this time last year, we were doing better at 30.8 million acre feet, or 50% capacity. And of course, the decreased hydrology has not helped that situation. Next slide, please. So here we have the SWE chart, or the snow water equivalent for inflow into Powell. We have our current year, 2021, in blue. And again, as of May 20th, we're at 55%, or 3.4 inches of the median of 6.2 for this time this year. We're currently at 21% of peak seasonal median with 16.1 inch. The 3.4 inches is 21% of the peak seasonal median of 16.1 inches. Normally that peak occurs in the second week of April. However, this year we peaked March 30th. And although we were at 89% of the median, which doesn't seem like that bad of a number, because of the very dry soil conditions leading into the snow runoff, that runoff did not make it to the rivers or tributaries, which is why the inflow has been reduced basically every month this year. So for comparison, I have last year in green, we have 2002 in cyan and 2012 in red. We're talking about the worst years for April through July runoff. We have 2002 at number 1 with just under 1 million acre feet, 1977 at 2 with 1.2 million acre feet, and 2012 at number 3, 2.06 million acre feet. Now, current forecast for the May 24-month study was 2 million acre feet, and that has been since reduced with the mid-month forecast to 1.85 million acre feet, which will put us at the third worst inflow for April through July. That also reduced our water year inflow, which will put us at the second worst year on the June 24-month study when that comes out, if everything stays the same. And I'll show you more about that on next slide, please. There's a lot of information on this slide. We'll go over bit by bit, but what you're seeing is the unregulated inflow into Lake Powell for the water year since 1964, and that's the dark blue. The light blue under those lines is the April through July runoff. For the 30-year average, which the Bureau of Reclamation uses, they usually use the 1981 through 2010, which is that black average line of 10.83 million. However, NOAA reduced an update on May 4th so that those averages will now be calculated from 91 until 2020. The Bureau has indicated that they're not going to start using the new averages until after the water year, but I've included it just so that you can see that by losing those 10 years of wet hydrology and adding in 10 years of dry hydrology, we've dropped in the average of about 1.2 million acre feet. So on this graph, we also have the May 24-month study, min, most, and max probabilities. You have the min in red, the most in green, and the max in the dark blue. As you can see, the most, we're looking right now at about the third worst year. However, because of the reduced inflow in the mid-month forecast, that's going to go down when the June study comes out. And then as the year progresses, you're going to start seeing a shift in what they're calling the averages. So even though the averages may increase, that doesn't mean it's a better situation. It's because of the decreased average for the 10-year shift.
Brett, sorry.
Yeah.
That was too complicated for me. Say that again. They've shifted what?
So the average that they're using right now is 1981 to 2010, that 10.83 million acre feet.
Right, I got that.
So you can see, like in the May most probable, that 3.64 million acre feet is 34% of average.
Yeah.
But when they switch over to the new average, which is the 91 to 2020, that same volume would increase to 38% of average. But that's no better because the average number has decreased by 1.2 million acre feet.
Right. Okay, now I'm with you.
So
It's a
as the year
slippery, slowly
progresses,
thing. Yeah. Got it.
go to the next slide, please. So here we're looking at the Lake Powell 24-month study. We have the most probable in green. We have that compared to the April most probable in gold. The max is shown in blue and the min in red. We see that the most and min probables for Lake Powell are going to be releasing 7.48 million acre feet in water year 22, while the min is only releasing 7.0. That's going to be confirmed by the August 24-month study. We look at the end of calendar year for the May most probable, end of calendar year of 21. We're going to end at an elevation, projected elevation of 3536.74 feet. That's down from the April study of over 13 feet, with the min and max range of 3530 to 3558 feet. Looking at end of calendar year 22, the May most is projected to be at 3556.53 feet, again down over 13 feet from April, with the min max range of 3517 to 3606. Next slide, please. So now looking at the same study, just for Lake Mead, you can see that the slight difference between the May and April, that's going to be due to changes in the inflow forecast and actuals, because the studies between April and May showed the same releases. But for end of calendar year 21, the most probable elevation is looking at 1065.82. That's a decrease of 1.5 feet since April, with a min max range of 1065 to 1067. And that is below the trigger point of 1075, which puts us into a tier 1 shortage going into calendar year 22. Looking at end of calendar year 22, the most probable end meet at 1048.83 with a min-max range of 1045 to 1062. That projected elevation is below 1050 and above 1045, which pushes us further into shortage as a tier 2A going into calendar year 23. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that the little decreases in between the Lake Mead 24-month studies was due to inflows. These are the intervening flows between Powell and Mead, or Hoover and Glen Canyon. And as you can see for this water year, we have not been at average a single month yet. And even if we continue to perform at 100% average for the rest of the calendar year or the water year, we're still only going to be at either 73% for the water year or 79% for the calendar year. However, given the trend and the current forecasts, I wouldn't expect that we're going to hit 100% average for maybe any of the months, but hopefully some. Next slide, please. So here in April, the Bureau released the CRIMS MTOM mode CRSS model, which they produced for the 5-year probability table. This is for Lake Powell. Based on the April forecast, Powell will most likely be operating in the mid-elevation release tier, releasing 748 for the next year. It's a 91% chance, and that's actually an increase of 15% since the table was produced in January. There's a 59% chance of back-to-back water year 22 and 23 748 releases in the stress test hydrology, and a 46% chance of back-to-back 748 releases in the full hydrology. The mid-elevation release tier is also the most likely operating tier for 2023, where the projections show a 65% chance of operating in this tier in the stress test. That's an increase of 5% since January. And if this year does progress to get worse, like 2002, thankfully we're above that threshold, so we can't go any worse than 2002. There is a chance that Lake Powell will end this year below 3525 and operate in the lower elevation balancing tier in water year 2022, which is how we get that 7.0 release. The next slide, please. So here we're looking at the same study. This is just for Lake Mead, the 5-year probability table. There's a 97% chance of shortage for calendar year 22. The chance of shortage in 2023 through 25 exceeds 75% in every year for both the full and stress test hydrology. And there is a greater than 90% chance of shortage in 2023 in both hydrology scenarios. The chances of a level 2 or level 3 shortage increased between 1 and 10% in 2023 through 25 in both the full and stress test hydrologies compared to the January model. The first projected level 2 shortage is in 2023. The chance of a level 2 shortage in 2024 increased from 50 to 60% in the stress test hydrology between the two studies. There's now a 36 to 44% chance that Lake Mead will fall below 1,025 feet in any month in 2024 or 2025 in the stress test hydrology. In both the full and stress test hydrology, there is a less than 4% chance of falling to below 1,000 feet in any month through 2024. Next slide, please. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions, and then I've also included some useful links that you can check out. We have the Arizona Reconsultation Committee going on. Hopefully you were aware of it and able to attend this morning's meeting. If not, it is posted on our website, or it will be posted on our website, and also CAWCD's website, if you wish to catch up on that.
Thank you, Brett. Do any of the GUAC members have questions or comments regarding?
Brett, will we be able to get a copy of your slides somewhere?
Yeah, I know that the meeting's being recorded, and Kennedy or Kyle, I'm sure you're going to be posting.
Yeah, so all the presentations you'll be hearing from today, they're already posted on our website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to save a little time, would you just send us a link to what that is? Sometimes I have a hard time sort of pecking around to try to find some of this info.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Brett, thanks for this. This is not good, but you know, you're doing a good job. Thank you for briefing us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along. Item number 6. WMAP updates. Melissa, what's going on with our WMAP things?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, council members and members of the public. My name is Melissa Sykes, and I'm the Water Management Program Coordinator, and I'm going to be going over the Water Management Assistance Program fund balance, the status of the DCP groundwater conservation grants, and it will introduce the WMAP project requesting renewal. At our previous meeting in January, we introduced the 2021 withdrawal fees reflected in this table here. Below the table is a breakdown of the current WMAP fund. The current balance is $74,166. Of that, $22,050 is committed, leaving a balance of $52,116. If we renew the Arizona Project Wet contract for $44,100, we would be left with $8,016 in the WMAP fund. We do expect to collect about $38,000 next year, which would allow us to, if we decided to renew WMAP or Arizona Project Wet again. But other than that, there are no other projects seeking renewal in the spring. The only project that is currently funded is with the WMAP funds is the Arizona Project Wet contract, and they currently have a remaining balance of $22,050. Next, I will give an update on the groundwater conservation grants. Since we last met, the Tucson Water Loss Control Program was executed, and that contract is set to end in June of 2024. We are awaiting signatures for the Marana Water Academy Program contract. It is currently in our office, so it just needs to receive a final signature. And once that is signed, all of the Tucson AMA groundwater conservation grant contracts will be executed. So before I move on, are there any questions regarding the WMAP funds or the groundwater conservation projects?
Yeah, I guess for me, I'd just ask, is there any anticipation of getting more money from the governor, or should we expect that any projects will need to be funded through our fees here going forward?
There currently hasn't been any money given for another round of the groundwater conservation grant, so it's really just from the WMAP fund.
Any other comments or questions for Melissa before we move on? Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. So now we'll just get started with the renewal presentation. We have Holly Thomas Hilburn and Betsy Wilkening presenting on and requesting renewal for Arizona Project Wet.
Okay, welcome Holly and welcome Betsy. You're both here. Good.
All right, I'll start out today and then pass it over to Holly. So I'm Betsy Wilkening, and along with my colleague Holly Thomas Hilburn, we'll give you an overview of the scope of our work in advance of our final report that Arizona Project Wet has performed through our IGA with ADWR. And move forward. And so this was the scope of the work with the Teacher Multi-Day Academy with ROVs, which I'll explain in a minute, and then our direct student outreach programs, along with the Water Festival and equipment loan. Next slide. So as most of you know, this image illustrates how education looked to both students and teachers for the majority of the time since March of 2020. At Arizona Project Wet, though, we seized this opportunity to engage teachers and students in meaningful learning in ways that we never imagined before. Next. Underwater robots, also known as ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, serve valuable roles in the water industry, including monitoring the CAP canal. They're also an excellent way to build engineering, math, problem solving, and presentation skills in students, all valuable skills that they need to enter the workforce later in life. COVID restrictions eliminated our ability to provide an in-person teacher training last summer. So instead, we reached out to our colleagues in Cooperative Extension 4-H and provided an online ROV Academy as part of the 4-H STEM University program that they run. We were able to provide interactive online training and supplies for teams to design and build an ROV for our remote competition. These teams consisted of family members in the same household and also adult 4-H leaders from the privacy of their own homes. Next. Our Arizona Mate Regional Competition became a remote opportunity for one Tucson school that was able to compete in the competition. They had 26 students and then ended up with 3 robots that were entered, and then our new 4-H teams. Next. So our every year we do an Arizona MATE regional competition, Marine Advanced Technology Education, out of California. And we turned it into an opportunity for a remote competition this year. And the challenges were modified to fit into a smaller portable pool where students were able to demonstrate their ROV in this pool. They also provided an engineering presentation and an online Zoom call to a panel of judges that included retired engineers and U of A STEM students. They created online marketing displays that were judged by another panel of judges. And in the online Zoom calls, I had a chance to listen in on these interviews, which I normally don't get a chance to do. And it was really enlightening to hear from the students. One student talked about the value of teamwork and how, they had to work together with people they didn't necessarily want to work with, which is extremely important for them moving forward. Another student talked about her favorite part was solving hard problems, and she really liked the challenge of the whole competition and the building an ROV. Another team that we had a parent and a child that was a team, and this parent normally homeschools their child, and they were saying that, the whole experience was amazing to her because she was learning alongside her child, something she hadn't done before. And she was able to learn from her own child as they went through this new endeavor together. And her child was able to tell her, "No, Mom, you're not doing that right. We need to do this." And so it was a great experience for them. Next. So with the continuation of our IGA, next year, what we want to do is plan to continue our partnership with the 4-H STEM University, and then provide an in-person MATE regional competition in Tucson in the spring for teams from across Arizona, and once again offer a summer teacher academy. Well, I'm going to pass it over to Holly now to have her tell you about our other programs.
Can you advance the slide, Melissa? All right, so you can imagine part of what the grant, the IGA funds is work at Sweetwater Wetlands with students. And so since students couldn't come on a school bus to Sweetwater Wetlands, we designed a way to bring it to them. And so our AmeriCorps team produced this great set of videos that we'll use into the future about how to be good scientific observers. And so students watched little 30-second clips of organisms at Sweetwater Wetlands and drew them and talked about being good observers and how to make good scientific observations and ask good questions. So that's how we adapted that one. And I'll tell you about the next one if you give me the next slide. All right, so this is actually exciting. And I think I can, after I'm done presenting, I'll put the link in the chat for you all if you promise to pay attention during the meeting. Some people from the U of A hydrology department and in collaboration with the Colorado School of the Mines developed this online student groundwater model. It's a ParFlow sand tank. So it actually does all of that stuff that ModFlow does in the background. It actually runs that on the model as you adjust things, and so you're able to just like we would in a classroom, work with a hands-on groundwater model. Those sand tank models, I think most of you are familiar with. Students are able to work with that in a digital way, and so that's been really fun. And we've also kind of come up with a solution for younger grades, because actually all of us have this problem, right, of working on a Zoom screen. You have Zoom going on and you need to do something else, and third graders just aren't competent in that skill yet. So we also built some hands-on models and found a way for students to just make a model out of some rocks in a container that they found at home. And so we did some work with younger students in that way to talk about groundwater. Next slide. This was exciting. We have not been doing so many faucet audits in the last couple of years because this is good news, right? As plumbing technology catches up with the standards that we want to see, fewer and fewer families need new aerators. But while we were all quarantined at home, the water scene investigation program, it was the program for our times, right? We were all supposed to wash our hands all the time. And so we were using our bathroom faucets all the time, and kids were at home. And so when it's really hard to get kids to do homework, it's a lot easier to get them to go change their aerator at their faucet when they've been sitting at a screen all day. So this was a highlight of my year. You can see I was actually, this is a student sitting at their faucet. They showed me their faucet and said, what do I do here? And I got to talk them through changing an aerator on their faucet. And so we're up to a projected savings of 1.7 million gallons per year based on student reported data. So how much do I use this faucet and how much did the flow rate change? And so that was an exciting thing that we got to do. We invented a new mascot here, Drippy, who walks students through the process of changing their faucet aerators and calculating their savings. Next slide. And finally, these are our plant superheroes. So we wanted, there was quite a bit of interest from teachers in how we get students excited about plants and looking at what's going on outside. And so we created this program called Plant Superheroes, where students learn about the superpowers of desert plants in being able to survive with minimal supplemental water. And this is, let's see, so we have Palo Verde and Mexican bird of paradise and a milkweed and a grass and then mulch, small but mighty mulch. And students work together to build guilds of superheroes to fight against drought or extreme heat or empty habitat. And so that was another virtual presentation that we had a lot of fun with. And the Arizona Water Festival, you're going to click through these. So those of you who are familiar with the Water Festival, I know a number of you have been Water Festival volunteers. Think of it as a big event. And obviously that's not what it could be. But the other part of the Arizona Water Festival that's really important is the teacher professional development and empowering the teachers to teach about water in their classroom. And so the first thing we did actually when we started quarantine a year ago was started developing some virtual models to shift those 4 water festival lessons to a digital model. So we made a bunch of videos. You can see this one is about watershed. And so those are kind of modules students can work through at their own pace, where they watch a video and answer a couple questions, that kind of a situation. But then we wanted to come up with something for the real event. Go ahead and click again. Oh, this is an exciting part I don't want to forget to share with you all because it's really relevant to the Tucson AMA. One of the things, that we try and teach, that have teachers teach in the classroom is the groundwater surface water connection. And in the classroom, that's a whole body lesson where students pretend to be units of water and are at the surface of the riverbed and then sink down into the groundwater. Since that wasn't possible, we came up with a new thing and we told the story of Tucson's water through the story of history and through the story of the Hohokam and how they used water, and then how over time we've shifted to pumping groundwater and how that changed the Santa Cruz River. And so it's a neat story and a different way for students to get a sense of that connection between groundwater and surface water. And then finally, we had the Water Festival event. Magician Richard Steele, if you click one more time, I think we get to see Richard. Oh no, we just see Drippy as a magician. Magician Richard Steele is a water magician that he's in the valley. So I think many of you might have seen him perform at different events, but he's a great entertainer. And since we were done with the learning components of the Water Festival, we got to have Richard celebrate with the students and give them a really strong conservation message and honor their work. And so that was a neat way to do that. And then partners like Marana Water made little videos to intersperse in there, which was really a neat component that we don't get in the Water Festival. We don't get to talk about our water careers and our systems as much. And so that was a really exciting way to do that. Next slide. The other part of our IGEA is equipment loaning, and that just wasn't possible with COVID restrictions. Next slide. And so looking forward to 21-22, we hope that we're going to be going back into the classroom, but nobody quite knows yet how soon guests will be welcome. Excuse me. And so we imagine that we'll probably be doing some hybrid. Also, some teachers have found that having a 1-hour digital session is a great precursor or substitute for a field trip that takes all day, right? You could do a 1-hour digital visit from a guest speaker in a lot shorter amount of time. And so those are some different things that will happen in the next year, but we hope to kind of get back to our previous levels of in-classroom activity and also add in some of these hybrid components. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Questions, comments? I have a couple of thoughts. In years past, we have been able to see what's planned, and I know this is really hard because we're coming out of the pandemic and there are a lot of unknowns. What would be helpful to me, and I don't know whether we have to take action today or not, DWR can tell me that, but I would really like to see how you estimate where the $44,000 would go. How much of it will go to the ROV program and some of the other programs? I would at least like to see that, since this is a renewal of a contract. It's not an extension of an existing contract.
Great question, Val. I think it's quite possible, actually the language of the contract is not going to change. So those projected numbers are the same as they were in the last round.
So the way that annual amount of money would be divvied up would be the same?
Yep,
exactly. Then I can't find it in my stack of former stuff. So it would be really great to have an email to us just showing what that is, because I'm having trouble finding it.
Yeah.
Do you, what's the pleasure of the committee? Do you want to vote to approve this or support it? It sort of sounds like might be a done deal through ADWR, but I think we ought to either support it or.
I'm assuming it's scheduled to start July 1st.
I think it's October, isn't it?
Hi, so the contract expires in October. It's up to what your recommendation is and the director's decision if this project is to be renewed. There's nothing set in stone with the department.
Okay.
We're just recommending to the ADWR what we think should happen. What's your pleasure?
I support the renewal.
Do I have a second?
I would agree with that.
Okay. Pat, if you can say yay or nay, let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, well, the electricity in my house just went out and I just now got back in. I do have one question before I vote, because it's
good.
Did we have a review of the budget and what monies are unspent, let's say?
Well, they said that the division of the amount of money was going to be the same going forward, but I asked that they send us, because I can't remember how it was going to be divided up, like how much of the 44,000 would go to the ROV program and how much to the other programs. And I'm sort of curious about that. So that was the only discussion we had about the budget, but apparently it's the same amount that they have asked for and received before.
Well, my question isn't as to the program, it's as to what the monies that we have available to, or the department has available to, in this, because we have other programs which we have commitments on.
Well, that's the only thing we still have. The only thing that's still on the books that's not paid for. We have $8,000 in our balance, and you must have been offline when we had that briefing.
Yes, that's my question.
We have $8,000. Everything paid up. We have $8,000, and we anticipate $38,000 coming in from fees for next year, which gives us $46,000. So.
That's what I was looking for, and with that in mind, I think this program is one we should spend all our money on. Thank you. I vote yay.
Okay, we're all in
Madam
favor.
Chair?
Yes, somebody's trying to speak. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, sorry, it's me, Melissa. Just so you know, we have Tucson AMA currently has $52,116. If you decide to renew, then
Oh.
you'll be left with $8,000.
Oh, heck, we've got tons of money. Oh, we're in the bucks. Thank you. That's life-changing. Okay, we voted aye for this item. So let's move on to item number 8.
Madam Chair,
Sorry, yeah, Doug.
I'd just like to comment that I think these people did a wonderful job during COVID, moving around and doing things that made a great deal of difference and found new ways to present it out there. And so, you know, if they're doing that last year, boy, I'm not too worried about next year, what they'll come up with.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. They're very nimble and very adaptable, and I commend them for that. Okay, item number 8, GWIAC updates. John.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. For the record, my name is John Riggins. I'm the statewide planning manager of the department. I'll be providing you with an update on the Governor's Water Augmentation, Innovation, and Conservation Council activities and recent meetings. I would also like to introduce Jenna Norris. Jenna will be coordinating the council and the committee meetings for ADWR and will also be assisting with subsequent updates to the GUACs on council activities.
Welcome.
So I'm sure by now you're all familiar with the Governor's Water Council and its committees, but as a refresher and for the benefit of the new council member, I'll just give a quick overview and background of the council and the committees. The council is made up of 43 individuals from across the state appointed by the governor, chaired by the director of ADWR. The council may form committees, and the council and the committee meetings are all open to the public. Committees work to identify and discuss issues and develop, evaluate, and prioritize recommendations for the council to consider. Staff and technical support for the council and the committees are provided by the department, and the council meets quarterly. There are 4 active committees for the council, which includes 2 subcommittees. Those are the Post-2025 AMA Committee. Their purpose is to identify challenges within the AMAs and generate strategies and solutions beyond the year 2025. The Non-AMA Groundwater Committee, whose purpose is to address groundwater issues outside of the state's AMAs. The Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee, whose purpose is to identify and explore methods of augmenting water supplies in Arizona. They also have a subcommittee, the Water Storage Site Subcommittee. And the final committee is the Desalination Committee. Their purpose is to evaluate and overcome barriers to desalination projects and identify opportunities to assist in developing potential projects. They also have a subcommittee, the Legal and Regulatory Subcommittee. So first, I'll provide a quick update on the council. The council last met on March 19th of this year. That agenda and discussion included an overview of the outline for the 2020-2021 Council Annual Report. Also included a presentation on the updates for the 5th management plans and updates from the committees to the council on the recent meetings and activities. The next council meeting will be on June 17th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and we will have updated meeting information and agendas posted to the meeting information webpage as they become available. And I've also included a link at the bottom of this slide to that meeting webpage where we will have the information and agendas posted. The meetings are still being held virtually, which has provided us an opportunity for greater stakeholder participation in the online committee meetings and attendance at our council meetings. Next, I will be updating you on the council committees, starting with the Post-2025 Committee. The Post-2025 AMA Committee met last February and discussed the issue briefs, which described 6 interrelated water management issues identified and discussed by the committee over the course of more than a year. The committee co-chairs presented a final package of the issue briefs to the council at the March 19th council meeting. There were concerns raised by some of the committee participants who felt the papers didn't capture their perspectives on the issues, and they provided a letter detailing their concerns that was appended to the issue briefs. The co-chairs will present a plan for moving forward to the council at the next meeting, which is June 17th. The next committee meeting is scheduled for June 22nd at 1 p.m., and that meeting will also be held virtually. The next committee I'll discuss is the non-AMA Groundwater Committee, who last met in December of 2020, and heard presentations from the department's chief counsel on irrigation non-expansion areas, as well as a presentation by Representative Regina Cobb on introduced legislation for establishing rural groundwater management areas. The committee discussed the two types of authorities, but no consensus on the subject was reached by the committee. The next committee meeting has not been scheduled. The Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee last met on March 12th and heard presentations from committee members on various studies related to water importation studies. This includes binational desalination and transbasin diversion augmentation to move water from the Missouri or Mississippi rivers to offset Colorado River diversions to the Front Range. The subcommittee of the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee, the Storage Site Subcommittee, also last met in February of 2021. The Desalination Committee last met on March 25th, 2021. The committee has a new chair, Henry Day of APS, will be taking over for Philip Richards as the chair of the committee. At that meeting, they reviewed draft legal and regulatory subcommittee regulatory background and summary of the discussion report. And I've also included a link to that report on this slide here. And to date, they have not scheduled subsequent meetings. So with that, I want to thank you again to the chairs, council members, for allowing me to provide an overview of the Governor's Water Council and committee activities. Please let me know if you have any questions. Jen and I are always available to assist with any questions or comments regarding the Governor's Water Council and committees. This slide shows our contact information, and as always, we encourage the GUAC members to attend the council and the committee meetings. We will have updated meeting information posted to our website. This includes meeting recordings, documents that are shared at the meetings. We have that all available currently on our website. So if you have any questions or would like to review any of the past meeting notes or discussions, you can review that there. With that, I want to thank you, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, John, and welcome, Jenna. Do we have any comments or questions for John? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are fully briefed. Okay, moving on to item number 9. McKenna, you want to tell us about management plan updates?
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Little and members of the council. My name is McKenna Welsh. I am a management plan specialist at ADWR, and I will be providing an update on the 5th management plans today. First, I will go through the status and timeline of the 5th management plans. This is the management plan statute, which states there shall be a management plan for each AMA for 5 management periods. The management plans must contain conservation programs that are designed to reduce withdrawals of groundwater. Next slide. Last year, we worked to develop the conservation program proposals that will be written into the 5th management plans. This development phase has carried over to this year, and we are hoping to finalize the last details of the proposals soon. We are currently drafting the 5th management plans and will continue to hold work group meetings to finalize the legal language in the plans, and will also seek input from the GUACs for AMA customization. Next year, we will start the adoption process for the 5th management plans, which will include publishing initial drafts early next year to provide time for additional stakeholder input, presentations to the GUACs for recommendations, and then the promulgation process. The 5th management plans are on track to be adopted by the end of next year, and to become effective on January 1st of 2025. Next slide. The structure of the fifth management plans will largely match across the AMAs. However, there will be time for AMA customization with recommendations from the GUACs and other stakeholders. We will continue to bring draft language to the management plan work group to receive input from stakeholders throughout the drafting process. There will be many opportunities for public comment and input throughout both the drafting and adoption process. Next slide. So next I will provide an overview of the conservation program proposals. Staff worked with the Agricultural BMP Advisory Committee through multiple meetings to develop recommendations for the BMP program and the fifth management plans. The committee recommended updates to the list of approved practices and points targets. On the list of approved BMPs, 9 new BMPs and 13 changes to existing BMPs were recommended. The updates were based on changes in technology and agricultural practices, the inclusion of maintenance, and clarification of language. A substitute practice BMP was also recommended in each category. In recognition of a need for a way to add new BMPs to the approved list, as technology develops, a procedure for adding new BMPs to the approved list was also included. The committee also recommended changes to the minimum points targets in 3 categories, which reflects an increase in conservation in the fifth management plans. There was no change to the total number of points required to participate in the program, which remained at 12 points. Next slide. The Integrated Farm Program is a new agricultural conservation program developed as a voluntary alternative to the BASE and BMP programs. It is an allotment-based program that would allow multiple IGFRs to be combined under one reporting umbrella. This is similar to how IGRs can report together in the BMP program, but instead of implementing BMPs, the allotments from participating rights under the same owner-operator could be combined. The owner-operator could use the water anywhere on the combined footprint. The total allotment would have a cut to the aquifer or a % reduction of that total combined allotment. This program reduces the administrative burden of having to report and exchange flex credits on each individual right as in the BASE program, but does not require the implementation and reporting requirements on individual BMPs as in the BMP program. Instead, the Integrated Farm Program has the ease of an allotment-based program and the administrative benefit of the BMP program. The Integrated Farm Program proposal was released earlier this month and presented at the last subgroup meeting. There are still details to work out, and we are continuing to accept feedback on this proposal. Next slide. The Municipal Non-Per Capita Conservation Program is a BMP-based program. Municipal providers are required to implement a number of BMP points determined by their service connections. In the fifth management plan's proposal, we adjusted the number of service connections by tier and also added an additional tier so providers would be more evenly distributed across the tiers. We also increased the number of BMP points required per tier and added a requirement that BMP points must be earned from a minimum number of categories to increase the diversity of BMPs being implemented. We added a new planning category which contains BMPs related to integrated water and land use planning and other types of long-range planning activities. And lastly, we adjusted many of the BMP's implementation and reporting requirements to collect more quantitative data that can be used to determine whether a BMP is effectively conserving water. Next slide. The Municipal GPCD program is an allotment-based conservation program. The fifth management plan GPCD requirement calculation maintains the same default minimum and maximum structure seen in the fourth management plan, but the calculations were updated to use rolling averages in order to provide more realistic requirements that still result in groundwater conservation. To ensure that the fifth management plan proposal would result in greater conservation, we looked at the total volume of the fourth management plan GPCD requirements versus what the fifth management plan GPCD requirements would have been if they were implemented in 2010. The chart on this slide shows the difference in those volumes for the Tucson AMA. The total fourth management GPCD requirements volume is the light blue, and the total fifth management plan GPCD requirements proposal is the dark blue. The fifth management plan's GPCD requirement calculation proposal results in greater water conservation across all AMAs. We also proposed updating the flexibility account provisions for the fifth management plan GPCD program. The current flexibility account provisions differ across all the AMAs. They range from a negative limit of -10 to -20 and a positive limit of 30 to 60. ADWR is proposing to streamline the flexibility account provisions across the AMAs and proposes the middle range of -15 for the lower limit and +45 for the higher limit. Lastly, the current compliance GPCD calculation includes water from any source except direct use effluent and effluent recovered within the area of impact for non-irrigation use. In the fifth management plans, we are proposing that the compliance GPCD calculation includes all sources of water except non-potable direct use effluent and non-potable effluent recovered within the area of impact for non-irrigation use. To align with the need for conservation of all water types and the value of potable water, the proposal removes the potable effluent incentive. Next slide. The development of the golf conservation program had several goals: to reduce withdrawals of groundwater, to make the impact equitable between the different types of courses, and to have smaller impact on the courses that have already made significant efforts in conservation, to incorporate realistic practices into the allotment method, and to increase the simplicity and transparency. Previous golf conservation programs were very complex and difficult to understand for both staff and the regulated community. There are currently 2 proposals for the golf course conservation program, one released in February and one in April. Both proposals have been adjusted to fit each AMA but follow a similar structure. The proposals consisted of an allotment method, allotment additions, and the effluent adjustment. The allotment method consists of different limits and application rates for different aspects of the golf course. However, the method is just a way to set the allotment, and golf courses may still use that water on their course as they see fit. Each of the 2 proposals have different trade-offs that impact courses differently depending on the characteristics of the course. The conservation program for golf has not been finalized. We have received a lot of feedback on the program and discussions are still ongoing. Next slide. The non-golf turf conservation program has few changes from the 4th management plan, and those changes are centered on the method used for developing the maximum annual allotment. Similar to the golf program, staff did have a goal to include realistic practices and application rates. The turf application rates were adjusted to represent the application rates and proportions of different uses, such as turf for decorative or athletic uses. The resulting application rates were very similar to those in the 4th management plan. The biggest change of the non-golf program is the lower water use acres application rate. This updated number better incorporates scientific data and more closely reflects the needs of low water use acres. The non-golf turf conservation program was also adjusted for each AMA. Next slide. We are currently having internal discussions on updates to the recharge and recovery program, which includes simple administrative changes we can adjust to streamline applications for recharge and recovery while still meeting the goals of the program. We still have some internal work to do before sharing details, but we will schedule a public meeting once those details are available. Next slide. Lastly, we wanted to highlight the 5th management plan's concepts page again. This page contains details of all the conservation program proposals I've covered today, as well as links to all of the management plan work group meetings and public comments. Next slide. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I have my contact information on this slide, and I will go ahead and pause here for any questions.
Thank you, McKenna. Comments or questions for her on these topics? Mike?
Yeah, just a quick one. On the municipal GPCD where you have the graph, was that difference based on an average between all three potential formulas as far as the previous year, the 3-year average, or the 5-year?
So the way that default minimum and maximum is the way that the requirement is set. So it wasn't a difference between those three methods. It was a difference between the requirements that would result from that calculation.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. How about call to the council? Folks have stuff you want to share or things you want to say? I got a couple comments, but you guys go first. Mike?
Yeah, I wanted to give a thanks to some of the people that helped on my appointment. Dr. Sharon Megdal from the Water Resources Research Center, and Herb Kai at Kai Farms, BKW, Joel Olson with Metro Water, and then Tim Tomier with City of Tucson, and Virginia O'Connell with the Water Bank, and Michael Hulse with NV5, and Mark Taylor with Westland. And then also wanted to give my thanks to ADWR staff. I gave a Hydrology 101 presentation to Saddlebrook Nature Club. I was recommended by Dr. Megdal to do that. And Kyle Miller was very helpful. There was some questions afterwards from the Nature Club on how Lago del Oro Water Company selected its municipal conservation program, and he was kind enough to forward those questions to the municipal planner, Colette, and I'm gonna probably not pronounce this, Panzini. Is that it? Anyway,
Panzini, yeah.
She was very quick to respond to their request and clarify also that the annual water level data is only required for water companies with a designation of an assured water supply. And their question was regarding how the water company selected its municipal conservation program, and she did a great job in addressing that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Doug? Pat?
I'm good.
Okay, Pat, I don't know where you are, dear. I had two things. One is that I know it's been a crazy year and we're all just struggling to try to, stay above water, so to speak. But we used to get handouts ahead of the meeting, and it would be really helpful for me if I had been able to see these PowerPoints even a day or two ahead, so that I know what's coming and I'm better prepared to comment or to ask intelligent questions. I'd like to see us get back to that, and we may have a gap of another meeting or two before we're actually able to be all together in person. So I'm hoping that maybe that can be part of the package that comes with our agendas and with my cheat sheet, the chair script.
Sure, we can certainly work on that. This time we did send the WMAP contract and some additional information on the WMAP. We also push it pretty close to the meetings on the PowerPoint slides, but we can get those out to all members as soon as we can prior to the meeting.
That would be great. The other thing is I'm beginning to get queries from folks in the water community here about when we're going to start up with our Safe Fuel Task Force meetings again. And because the GUAC meetings do not tend to lend themselves to candid offline informal discussion about issues relative to this AMA. I'm going to be working on this to get a time frame when we can start having these meetings. I'm not willing to chair Zoom meetings. I'm just too much of a Luddite. But as soon as Metro Water says they're willing to let us, use the meeting room again, and we can all sort of use the honor system that we're all healthy and so forth, I want to get back to that. So Wally, maybe you can help me figure out when that might be, because people are beginning to talk about having offline discussions about our fifth management plan and input we might want to provide to ADWR.
I will have that conversation with Joel Olson.
Great. Thank you, Wally. I knew you were there. And I'm sending you an email here in a minute. Anybody else on the council want to comment? Anybody in the public want to turn on their mic and make a comment?
I'm a little late, but this is Pat Jacobs.
Yes, Pat.
I don't have anything specific, but I was able to sit in, quote, in quotes, on the Phoenix GUAC meeting yesterday. And when you look at what the staff has to do with data, in this case, back-to-back presentations, I just wanted to say they were excellent and very helpful.
Good. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay, I'm going to move on. Anybody else? I'm going to move on to item number 11, call to the public. Anybody? Come on, I know your names. I see you there.
I did have a plug, Val.
Okay.
The Arizona Hydrological Society's annual symposium is going to be in Phoenix this year from September 15th to the 17th. And our keynote speaker is Bruce Babbitt, who will be joining us by Zoom, but there will be a live Q&A afterwards.
So the meeting will be not virtual, it'll be a real meeting?
No, it'll be in person, but Bruce was amenable to joining us by Zoom.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
And, anyway, we're also accepting abstracts for presentations up until this Friday.
Okay. Anybody else in the public want to comment? Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Unless there's an objection, I will adjourn the meeting at 2:12 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, ADWR staff. Bye, fellas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council.
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right.